This week on Big Red's Cooking, we make an apple flip. Hi, how are you? Welcome back to Big Red's Cooking. As always, I'm Big Red. So I'd like to say little shout outs and say hi to some of my fans, and I've learned the name of one of my biggest fans, I guess, or I'm thinking she's one of my biggest fans. So Suzanne, I want to say a little hi. I've been told she watches videos most days, and she likes to rewatch some of the videos. So I'm glad you're enjoying them, and this one's going out to you. So this week I'm going to do what I think is a favorite all over the place, but particularly here in Newfoundland. I'm going to do an apple flip. And I'm going to use my really simple 3-2-1 pastry, and it's much easier to make a good pie crust than you might think it is, and we're going to do this with a simple apple filling. But I know you don't want to sit there, I guess, and watch me stand here and talk to you guys. So you know what, let's go ahead and jump on over to our workbench and we'll pick up over there. Alright, so you can see we've got all of our ingredients already laid out. You know, you've probably, loyal watchers will have heard me say mise en place before. And when we're talking about our mise en place, we're talking about all those little tools and the food that we're going to need to be able to prepare our dishes. So, first thing we're going to get done is we're going to get our flour. And of course, I got my handy scale, which I love to use. And this is a really simple pastry. You know, we call this 3-2-1 because it's 3 parts flour, 2 parts butter, and 1 part water. So, let's go ahead and get our flour weighed first. And there you go, I get 300 grams of flour. Now to that, I'm going to add 6 grams of salt, which is about 1.5 teaspoons. Or sorry, a teaspoon. A teaspoon should do it. And what I want to do is I'm going to give this a really good little mix so that my salt is all nice and equally through this flour. Now this is pretty much a no-fail way of making a pie crust. You know, one of the big things with pie crust is making sure that you get that butter properly cut into your flour without having it mixed in too much. And we want to see those bits of butter in there, and that's what's going to give us that really good flaky crust. Alright, so here's my little trick. I'll be right back. So I get 200 grams of butter here, and this has been frozen solid. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to grate this down. So this is going to do us a couple things. One, by having our butter frozen, it's going to be a little less likely to actually blend into our flour, which is what we want. By grating it, it's going to give us the perfect size pieces throughout that butter. Alright, so there's nothing special about this. Alright, so there we go. Our butter is all grated down. And what I like to do at this point is just take a rubber spatula and just sort of blend this through so that butter is all nice and equally spread through that flour. So there you go. So at this point now we get that lovely butter through there, all nice and equally mixed through our flour. And now we need our water. So, and again, what we want is nice ice cold water. One of the reasons we want cold water is that anytime we add water to flour, we start gluten development. But the colder our water, the less gluten development. But not only that, with pie crust, as I was mentioning a few moments ago, we don't want that butter getting mixed in too much. So by using ice cold water, what we're doing is we're making sure that our butter doesn't melt. So I'm just going to go ahead, and again, the easiest way to do this, I find, if you've got that kitchen scale, is that I can now just weigh my water. So I've got ice water, I don't need to worry about what's in here. And I'm just going to go ahead and add 100 grams in. So again, at this point now, I'm going to take my pastry cutter and I'm just going to blend this down until we have a dough. Now I'm finding this is looking a little dry, and that happens sometimes. The moisture in the flour itself can really depend on the time of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a little extra water. I'm much happier now as a result of how this is looking. So at this point I'm going to stop cutting with my pastry knife and I'm going to pull this together with my hands. Alright, so there's our pastry, and we're just going to set this to the side and give my hands a wipe. Alright, so the next thing we're going to tackle is our apples. Now, I am by nature a lazy person, so I like to find the easiest way to do things. Not only that, I like to make sure I'm maximizing out my value. So, I figured out how to maximize. Hello, Tala. She loves apple. How to get the most out of apples when I'm doing dessert. So what I like to do, now obviously, you got a way that works for you, go ahead and do that. What I like to do is I take the core out, the top and the bottom of both my apples. Or if I was doing this with 100 apples, I'd do this with all of them. And then I take my peeler. And what I like to do is just go right from top to bottom. And again, a really good quality peeler. And what it's going to do is going to produce really nice thin peels for us. So we end up with more of our apple. Alright, so with our apple all peeled, I just straight down through the center. And again, as a way of maximizing out, what I like to do is I take my melon baller. And that just goes right into the center. I'm going to use a small one. And again, now that removes all my seeds for me. Instead of the traditional apple core where you get that big piece coming right down through the center, and as a result you lose a lot of your apple, I don't lose so much of my apple now. Now, if you don't have a melon baller, your measuring spoons will do just as good of a job for you. So just take my measuring spoon and do the exact same thing. C-A-Y-G, clean as you go. Okay, so now all we're going to do is we're just going to take these apples and we're going to slice them lengthwise, so basically top to bottom. Now again, what I like to do is I slice to that halfway point, and then instead of working with that downward slope, I just roll it right on over. And again, so I'm slicing from the thin to the thicker. And I'm making my slices fairly thin here. I'm going to do 6 of these. I normally use about about a quarter of an apple per. So I don't need this other half apple. I'm going to give Tala a little treat. Sit, Tala. Good girl. And Cyan outside is going to want some too. Got to take care of the puppies. Alright, so now what we're going to do, we're going to add a bit of brown sugar in here. I got about a half cup of brown sugar here. A little cinnamon. This is some nice Vietnamese cinnamon my mom got me for a Christmas gift. I'll put about a teaspoon of that in there. You can use a little more, a little less, depending on what you like. We'll just get this little toss around. So all we're trying to do is coat these apples with that cinnamon and that brown sugar. And what will happen is that the sugar is going to actually draw some of the juice out from the apples for us. And there we go. So we'll just put these to the side for the moment and get rid of this stuff. Alright, so I'm lucky, and if you have one like this, I highly recommend it. This cutting board measures 12 by 18, and it's the perfect size for rolling out my pastry. So I'm just going to take a little flour and sprinkle this right across the top here. We don't want our pastry sticking to our board. I'm just going to roll this out so that you got a nice even layer right across the top of this board. Now, I had a little bit of a gap here, so what I'm going to do is I took a little piece, I'm going to glue it back down in place. And all I basically did was just put a little bit of cold water right over the top. I want to make sure my rolling pin doesn't stick to that spot, so I'm just going to give that a little dust. And that water is going to help to glue that piece down into place for me. And what I like to do every so often is just to lift. And see, it's starting to stick there. So I don't want my pastry sticking when I go to pick it up and put it on my pan. So it's worth giving a check every so often. If you need a little more flour to keep it from sticking, do that. Alright, so I'm noticing I've got a bit of a thin spot right here, but I've got this stuff hanging over the side. I'm just going to trim that off. A little water here. And then that can go glued right into place. So what I like to do then is I just going to take the edge and just cut away from my edge. Don't go throwing that away, not for now, because if I need anything for repairs, I'll be able to use that. So now I've got this nice 12 by 16 square. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice right down through. Slice right down through, so I get 3 equal strips here, and then another one right down through the center. So what you should end up with then is 6 nice squares. Alright, so now again, if you don't have a board like this, just roll it out flat and get yourself 6 nice squares. And now all we're going to do is we're just going to take our apple. I'm just going to drop it right into the center. Now you'll notice there's probably some juice and whatnot in the bottom of the bowl. We don't want that getting into our pastry. That's just going to make a soggy pastry for us. And I didn't mention earlier, but these are Granny Smith's apples, and you want to be careful about the selection of apples for dessert like this. Macintosh, for example, is not really a great apple. Not for cooking, it's a great eating apple. But it tends to be way too wet and just doesn't cook up as nice, not in a dessert like this. So I highly recommend a nice firm apple like a Granny Smith or an Ambrosia. Alright, so we've got our apples all nice and equally distributed. What I want to do now is just give all the edges a quick wipe with some water. And what this is going to do, this is going to act as our glue so we can be able to fold these up and shape them properly. We want our pastry to be able to stick together. Alright, so now here's how I like to fold these. What I do is I take it and I bring my corners together. We're just going to pinch that down, and we actually want to create that little bit of a lip. So then you can just bring continue to bring your corners in, and basically we're going to create a small little square. You want to really make sure that you squeeze that pastry together. We don't want this popping open while it cooks. So you can go ahead and just do that with all of these now. And really what you should see is that X marks the spot. Alright, so I've got them all shaped. A couple I've had little holes poke into, and that's okay. What we want to be able to do is you actually need to put a couple little slits in these so that the steam can get out. Now if you want to get really fancy, what you can do is you can do a couple little lines that sort of follow the ribs. But for the most part, I just poke little holes into them. Alright, we're going to pop these on our baking sheet here now. There we go, nothing special about this, and we don't need to worry about space too much because they're not going to really grow. And I've got my oven preheated at 350, so we're going to go ahead and pop these in, and we'll check on them. They're going to take about 20 minutes or so. So we'll be back in a few minutes. I'm just going to get a bit of cleanup done here. Alright, so you can see I got my counter and everything all nice and clean now. Took advantage of all that stuff was in the oven, and it's smelling fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and have a look at these here now. Oh yeah, and I think those are done. Let's have a quick look at our bottom here. Yeah, they're done. So we'll go ahead and pop these on our tray here, let them cool down. And you can see I didn't actually pinch mine close enough on a few of these. The pastry sort of came open, but I'm sure they're going to taste just as good. These smell just absolutely wonderful. So you know what, I'm going to give these a few moments to cool down because I don't want to burn my mouth off. But I can't wait to have one of these. We'll pick up back over here on our counter now in a few minutes when these are cool for, and I can actually bite into one. Oh yeah. So doesn't that just look amazing? Oh, this is going to be tasty. You see those lovely flakes. The real butter in that pastry makes all the difference in the world. You can go ahead and you can do that with lard, or you can do it with shortening. But give yourself a treat. If you're going to do this, buy a pound of real butter. Just can't beat it. So you can see there really isn't too much to this pastry. And this pastry works really well in a lot of different sort of things. You can use this for pies and all kinds of other stuff. Now I do have a whole video just on this no-fail pastry, and I talk a little bit different about the difference between mealy crust and flaky crust, and the different times we use the different types of crusts and the different way we make them and things like that. So I will go ahead and link it, and I don't know, it'll be up here or up here somewhere at the end of this video, as well as a link to be able to subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done that yet, I'm going to ask that you do that. You know, please share these videos on your social media feeds and send emails if you want to. I'm trying to grow that subscription base a little bit better. So as always, I really do hope you've enjoyed this video. You know, go ahead and give these apple flips a try. You know, they're a Newfoundland favorite, and I really can't think of anyone who doesn't love a nice little apple pastry. It's like a little mini apple pie. They're great warm out of the oven. I did these last week at school, and my coworker actually had it with vanilla ice cream. She just absolutely loved it. These hold really well as well, so you know, you can always serve them cold the next day. So go ahead, give it a try. You know, try other fruits and jams on the inside too. You don't have to do these with apples. But as always, you know what, like I've said before, please subscribe, please share these videos, keep coming back, send me some links. If there's a video in particular you'd like to see me do, let me know. You know, give me a little comment or a thumbs up down below. You know, if there's a particular recipe from a different site and you want me to give it a shot to see how it comes, you know, send it to me. I'll do what I can to come up with a video. So keep coming back, keep eating some good food, and we'll see you again down the road. Bye for now. Namultus.